$8 million seized, fourth and luxury cars confiscated, a trafficking empire hidden in plain sight. Tonight, we expose the man who built it.
At 5:47 a.m., under the dim flicker of neon signs still glowing in the pre-dawn darkness, a line of black SUVs rolled silently down Roosevelt Avenue in Queens, New York. The air was cold, suffocating in its stillness. Most of the neighborhood still slept. But inside those vehicles, 83 federal agents checked their body cameras one final time, adjusted tactical vests, and reviewed floor plans on illuminated tablets. Outside a modest two-story building with a hand-painted sign reading Golden Lotus Wellness Spa, an agent keyed his radio. One word, go. Within seconds, the door exploded inward with a deafening crack. Flashlights sliced through the darkness. Voices shouted commands in English, Mandarin, and Spanish. This wasn't a routine inspection. This was the culmination of an 18-month undercover operation that would expose one of the most sophisticated human trafficking networks ever uncovered on American soil. Today, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in coordination with Immigration and Customs Enforcement's Homeland Security Investigations Unit, announces the arrest of 30 individuals connected to a sprawling interstate human trafficking and money laundering enterprise. The voice of Assistant Director Michael Stevens echoed through a packed press conference room in Manhattan. Behind him, a digital display showed mugshots, organizational charts, and seized evidence photographs. The Department of Justice had mobilized resources across 7 states. Operation Hidden Chains, the code name for this investigation, represented the largest coordinated strike against commercial sex trafficking fronts in over a decade. Federal agents, multi-state coordination, 30 arrests, millions in assets seized. What began as a single complaint to a local precinct had unraveled an empire hiding behind the ordinary facade of massage parlors, nail salons, and wellness centers. The investigation started unremarkably. In March 2024, a building inspector in Flushing, Queens, noticed something odd during a routine fire code inspection. A massage parlor with reinforced interior doors, security cameras pointed at unusual angles, and sleeping mats stacked in a back room. He filed a report. Most would have dismissed it. Detective Sarah Chun didn't. She forwarded the report to the NYPD's Vice Unit, which began surveillance. Within 2 weeks, they documented a disturbing pattern. Women arriving at the location at odd hours, always accompanied by the same 2 men. The women never left alone. They never carried purses. Many appeared malnourished, exhausted, with visible bruising on their arms and necks. What detectives expected to find was a small-scale prostitution operation, perhaps 3 or 4 women, a local pimp, maybe some misdemeanor charges. Instead, they found something far darker. When federal agents executed the first warrant on that cold September morning, they discovered 12 women locked inside, 7 from China, 3 from South Korea, 2 from Thailand. None had identification. None spoke English. Their phones had been confiscated. They slept on thin mats in a windowless room measuring just 180 square feet. The temperature was 58 degrees. There was one toilet. No windows. The door was locked from the outside. But that was just one location. Agent Marcus Rodriguez, a 14-year veteran of HSI's anti-trafficking unit, described what he saw. In my entire career, I've never encountered an operation this organized, this brutal, and this widespread. These women weren't just being exploited. They were being systematically enslaved. Hidden behind a false wall in the basement, agents found something even more disturbing, a ledger. Handwritten in Mandarin, it documented transactions dating back 4 years. Names, dates, dollar amounts, debt figures ranging from $45,000 to $70,000 per woman. Payment schedules, punishments for non-compliance. The women had been promised legitimate jobs, restaurant work, housekeeping, childcare. Instead, they arrived in the United States to find themselves trapped in a nightmare. Their passports were confiscated immediately. They were told they owed debts for their travel, their housing, their food. They were forced to work 7 days a week, often 14 hours a day. They saw none of the money. If this shocks you, hit the like button right now. This story must be told. Share this video before it gets buried. The people behind this operation were counting on your silence. But that was only the beginning. As FBI cyber forensics teams analyzed seized laptops and phones, a terrifying picture emerged. This wasn't just a single massage parlor. This was a network spanning 7 states and 23 locations. New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Georgia, Texas, California. The operation was astonishingly sophisticated. The The criminal organization used encrypted messaging apps to coordinate movements of women between locations. They operated shell corporations, legitimate-looking LLCs with business licenses, tax filings, and commercial leases. On paper, they were wellness centers offering therapeutic massage. In reality, they were human trafficking hubs generating an estimated $2.4 million per month. The real discovery came when forensic accountants traced the money. The funds didn't stay local. Wire transfers moved cash through a complex web of international accounts, first to shell companies in Delaware and Nevada, then to banks in Hong Kong, then to Macau, and finally to accounts in mainland China. The money was layered through real estate purchases, luxury car dealerships, and cryptocurrency exchanges. In total, investigators identified $18.7 million in assets directly connected to the operation. But the infrastructure went deeper still. Hidden in an encrypted server seized from a property in Flushing, agents found thousands of files, photoshopped advertisements, client databases with over 4,000 names, and internal communications revealing corrupt officials who had been paid to look the other way. A former city building inspector had received $127,000 in bribes over 3 years. A clerk at a Department of Motor Vehicles office had provided fake identification documents for $500 each. Even a low-level officer in the NYPD's administrative division had been feeding information to the traffickers about upcoming inspections. This wasn't just organized crime. This was systemic corruption. The victims told stories that haunt the investigators to this day. One woman, identified only as Victim 7 in court documents, testified that she had been locked in a room for 72 consecutive hours as punishment for refusing a client. Another described being forced to have an abortion because pregnancy would disrupt business operations. A third recounted being branded with a cigarette burn on her inner thigh, a mark of ownership by the trafficking ring's enforcer, a man known only as Dragon. Behind the facade of therapeutic wellness centers lay an empire of brutality, exploitation, and human suffering. How many massage parlors in your neighborhood are legitimate? How many hide horrors just like this? Type exposed in the comments if you're paying attention. This is happening in every major city in America, and most people walk right past it. The architects of this operation were careful. They were calculated, and they were confident they'd never be caught. At the top of the organization sat 47-year-old Chun Wei, a naturalized U.S. citizen living in a $2.3 million home in Alpine, New Jersey. To his neighbors, he was a successful businessman, philanthropic, quiet, always smiling. He donated to local charities. His children attended private schools. He drove a Tesla Model S. But to the women trapped in his network, he was a nightmare. Chun Wei controlled every aspect of the operation. He personally selected which women would be trafficked based on photographs sent from recruiters in China. He set the debt amounts. He determined which locations were most profitable. When women tried to escape, he ordered brutal reprisals, beatings, threats against family members back home, forced drug addiction to ensure compliance. Working directly beneath him were 6 lieutenants, each responsible for a geographic territory. They collected cash, rotated women between locations to prevent them from forming relationships with clients who might help them escape, and enforced discipline with shocking violence. One lieutenant, 39-year-old Jo May, ran operations in Texas. She was a woman, a fact that investigators found particularly disturbing. She had once been a victim herself. But after years in the system, she had become an enforcer, recruiting new victims with false promises and personally administering punishments to those who disobeyed. The investigation reached a critical turning point in August 2025 when an undercover HSI agent posing as a potential investor gained access to the organization's inner circle. Over 4 months, wearing a concealed recording device, he documented meetings where Chun Wei openly discussed expansion plans, 30 new locations across the southern United States, partnerships with similar networks in Los Angeles and San Francisco, and strategies to avoid law enforcement detection. The recordings were damning. They provided prosecutors with everything they needed. At 4:41 a.m. on January 14, 2026, federal agents launched Operation Hidden Chains. Simultaneously across 7 states, tactical teams breached 23 locations. In Queens, agents used a battering ram to smash through reinforced doors. In Houston, a SWAT team rappelled from a rooftop to access a second-story window. In Philadelphia, agents cut power to an entire city block to prevent suspects from destroying evidence. The raids were executed with military precision. At 4:43 a.m., agents in Fairfax, Virginia secured a 2-story building and recovered 8 women. At 4:44 a.m., teams in Atlanta arrested 3 suspects trying to flee through a back alley. At 4:47 a.m., agents in Los Angeles recovered hard drives and financial documents from a suspected money laundering front. By 6:30 a.m., it was over. 30 suspects were in custody. 68 victims had been recovered and were receiving medical attention and trauma counseling. Agents had seized $3.2 million in cash, 14 luxury vehicles, 7 properties valued at a combined $8.4 million, and over 200 electronic devices containing evidence. But the most important seizure wasn't financial. It was human. 68 women were finally free. The prosecutions came swift and severe. Chun Wei was charged with 47 counts, including sex trafficking, forced labor, money laundering, and conspiracy. He faced a potential sentence of life in prison without parole. His 6 lieutenants faced sentences ranging from 25 to 40 years. The corrupt officials who enabled the operation, the building inspector, the DMV clerk, the NYPD officer, were all arrested and charged with bribery and conspiracy. In December 2025, Chun Wei was convicted on all counts. At his sentencing hearing, federal prosecutors presented testimony from 14 victims. The judge called it one of the most depraved criminal enterprises she had encountered in 22 years on the bench. Chun Wei showed no emotion as he was sentenced to life in federal prison plus 240 years. If you think this is just one case, you're wrong. If you think this doesn't affect you, think again. Subscribe to this channel and share this video with everyone you know. The next massage parlor, the next nail salon, the next wellness center could be hiding the same nightmare. Here's what you need to understand. Operation Hidden Chains recovered 68 victims from 23 locations. But federal investigators estimate there are over 9,000 illicit massage parlors operating in the United States right now. 9,000, each one a potential front for trafficking, exploitation, and slavery. This wasn't just about bringing down one criminal network. This was about exposing a system, a global infrastructure that treats human beings as commodities, that exploits vulnerability, that thrives in the shadows of legitimacy. The women recovered in Operation Hidden Chains are receiving care through a partnership between the Department of Homeland Security and nonprofit organizations specializing in trauma recovery. But many will never fully heal. The psychological scars, the broken trust, the years stolen from them, these are wounds that don't simply close. And the men who purchased their services? The 4,000 names in that client database. Only 27 have been charged. The rest remain anonymous, protected by legal complexities and jurisdictional limitations. They walk among us, neighbors, co-workers, community members, carrying the secret of their participation in modern slavery. These operations exist because we allow them to. They thrive in plain sight because we choose not to see. Behind the neon signs, behind the hand-painted advertisements for relaxation and stress relief, behind the ordinary facade of strip mall storefronts, human beings are being bought and sold. Type justice in the comments. Hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel. And most importantly, share this video. The people running these operations depend on your ignorance. They count on your indifference. They profit from your silence. Operation Hidden Chains freed 68 women. But thousands more are still trapped, still suffering, still waiting for someone to notice. How many times have you driven past a massage parlor and never thought twice about it? How many exist in your city right now? And what horrors are hidden behind their doors while you go about your day, unaware and unconcerned? The raid on Roosevelt Avenue ended one nightmare. But across America, countless others continue. The question isn't whether these operations exist. The question is, what are you going to do about it?